Undercover Black CEO buys luxury car at his own dealership. Could not believe what he hears from the salesman behind him. He walked into the luxury dealership wearing worn-out clothes, his head held high. But in seconds, the salesman's whispers started. Is he lost? Probably can't even afford an oil change. The laughter behind his back burned hotter than the Florida sun outside. But what nobody knew was that the man they were mocking, he could buy the entire dealership 10 times over. He wasn't just here to look at the Rolls-Royce. He was here to find the truth. And when he heard what they said behind his back, when he saw the dirty tricks they were pulling on people who looked like him, he knew he couldn't stay silent any longer. What happened next would leave the whole dealership shaking to its core. Darnell Carter hadn't come from wealth. He was born and raised on the hard edges of Detroit, where survival was a daily mission and dreams often stayed just that, dreams. His mother, a school janitor, and his father, a city bus driver, had instilled one thing in him. You treat everyone the same. No one's better, no one's lesser. After years of grinding, fixing cars, working sales floors, studying business at night, he founded Carter Elite Motors with a single mission: create a dealership where everyone was treated with respect, whether they walked in wearing Armani or Walmart. And for years that mission held, until now. Recent anonymous emails had poured in, stories of customers, especially Black, Hispanic, and working-class folks, being sneered at, judged, and shoved into shady high-interest deals just because they looked poor. Darnell knew he had to see the truth with his own eyes. Today, he wasn't just fighting for his company, he was fighting for his soul. "Can I help you one, sir?" a slick-haired salesman asked, his voice dripping with fake politeness as he looked Darnell up and down like a dirty windshield nobody wanted to touch. Darnell gave a polite nod, trying to brush past the man's tone. "I'm looking at the Rolls-Royce," he said, gesturing toward the polished silver Ghost gleaming under the showroom lights like a trophy. The salesman's fake smile faltered for a second, then tightened into something uglier. "Oh," he said slowly, as if speaking to a child. "Well, that's not really in the price range for, everyone. Maybe you'd be more comfortable checking out our certified pre-owned section. Some nice used Toyotas back there. Very affordable. Financing available." He winked like he was doing Darnell a favor. Before Darnell could respond, the low murmur of voices behind him thickened. "Man, what's he doing here? Lost? Or maybe casing the place? Nah, he's probably one of those rappers, or a gangbanger trying to flex. Hope security's watching him." The words crashed into Darnell like fists. He stood still, fists clenching at his sides, but his face stayed calm. He had dealt with this his whole life. Assumed criminal, assumed failure, but hearing it here, in his own company, cut deeper than ever before. Keeping his voice steady, Darnell asked, "How much if I pay cash?" The salesman's face stiffened. His eyes darted around nervously like Darnell had just pulled a gun. "Cash?" he repeated, scoffing. "Yeah, okay, sure." He leaned closer, his voice dropping into a condescending hiss. "You know we have to report suspicious cash activity, right? Big purchases, no paperwork." He straightened up, fake smiling again, louder this time so everyone could hear. "Wouldn't want the feds thinking anything illegal's going on, sir." Laughter rippled through the nearby sales desks, quiet but sharp, like knives drawn across skin. The entire showroom shifted. Conversations paused. Eyes locked onto Darnell like he was a walking crime scene. In that instant, Darnell saw it. This wasn't about one bad apple. This wasn't even about him. This was about a whole system festering in the shadows, and he wasn't going to let it rot unchecked. Swallowing the heavy lump in his throat, Darnell forced himself to stay calm. "Maybe you're right," he said lightly. "Maybe financing is the smarter option after all." The salesman's grin widened, fake, sharp. He motioned toward a glass-walled office tucked at the corner of the showroom. "Right this way," he said smoothly, like a spider leading a fly into the web. Inside, the office was cold, clinical. Certificates lined the walls. A fake plant sat dying in the corner. Darnell sank into the leather chair across the desk, keeping his face neutral. The salesman dropped a stack of paperwork in front of him with a casual thud. Too eager, too familiar. "Here's what we got for you," the salesman said, sliding the papers across with a smirk. Darnell flipped through the pages slowly, and his stomach twisted. Service fees for vehicle prep that should have been included. Market adjustment charges adding $20,000 to the MSRP. No justification, just greed. Extended warranty forced into the payment plan without even asking if Darnell wanted it. Bogus luxury taxes pretending to be official. And the worst part? The financing rates. On a second sheet, hand-marked, Darnell saw clear differences. Good credit applicants who looked right, 3% to 5% loans. Others, mostly minorities, immigrants, or anyone who wouldn't ask questions, as the note said, slammed with 22% to 26% interest rates. All designed to trap, all designed to rob. Darnell set the papers down carefully, feeling the heat rise behind his eyes. The salesman leaned forward, voice dropping to a knowing whisper. "See, man, the game's the game," he said, tapping the papers like he was giving Darnell a gift. "Guys like you. No offense, man. You usually don't read all this fine print anyway. You just want to drive something nice. We help you get there." He laughed under his breath. "You sign? We all win." There it was, the ugly truth laid bare. Not just about one bad salesman, but a whole system built to bleed people dry, to sell them a dream and chain them to it. For a moment, Darnell felt himself staring through the man, through the glass walls, through the shiny showroom floor. He saw his father working double shifts for years just to afford a used car. He saw his mother clutching rejection letters from banks who called them high risk without ever meeting them. He saw every kid who grew up believing no matter how hard they worked, they'd never be trusted, never be seen. Darnell slowly looked up, locking eyes with the salesman, but this time, his gaze wasn't calm. It wasn't polite. It was full of the storm he'd been carrying his whole life. He smiled once, a slow, dangerous smile. It was time. It was long past time. Before we show you what happens next, make sure to subscribe to Undercover Files. You won't believe how this story ends. And trust me, you'll want to see every shocking twist. Darnell pushed the papers back toward the salesman slowly, almost tenderly, as if handing back a bomb about to go off. Then he stood. The air in the glass office grew heavier, thicker, like the room itself knew something was about to break. "Get your general manager," Darnell said, his voice low and steady. The kind of voice that made men straighten up without even knowing why. The salesman snorted, still playing it cool. "What, you gonna file a complaint or something?" he said, voice cocky, careless. Darnell said nothing. Instead, he reached into his jacket, pulled out his phone, and turned the screen toward the salesman. A photo filled the screen. Darnell Carter standing proudly in front of Carter Elite Motors headquarters, smiling alongside the mayor at a grand opening ceremony. His name, his face printed across a massive golden plaque. Darnell Carter, founder, CEO. The moment hit the salesman like a sledgehammer. The color drained from his face so fast it looked like someone had pulled the plug. He stumbled back into his chair, mouth opening and closing uselessly, gasping for a word that wouldn't come. Outside the office, it was like the air shifted. Customers paused. Staff froze mid-step. Whispers raced through the showroom like wildfire. "That's the CEO? Oh my God! Oh no!" In less than 60 seconds, the general manager came barreling across the floor, red-faced and drenched in sweat, stumbling over apologies. "Sir, Mr. Carter, we had no idea, sir. Please." Darnell didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. His anger was in his stillness, in the fire burning quietly behind his eyes. "You judged me the second I walked in here," Darnell said, his words slicing through the room with surgical precision. "You looked at the color of my skin, you looked at the clothes I was wearing, and you decided who I was." He took a slow step forward, and the manager flinched, like a man standing too close to a wildfire. "You didn't just insult me. You insulted every hardworking person who walks through that door, hoping for fairness, hoping for respect." He turned slightly, speaking now to the whole floor. Customers, salesmen, managers, everyone caught in the storm he unleashed. You preyed on the people who could least afford it. You scammed them, laughed about it, profited from their trust. Silence, heavy, crushing. You could hear a pin drop. The salesman, the one who had smirked and whispered and mocked him, now sat frozen, his face gray with terror. Darnell let the silence stretch until it was almost unbearable. Then finally he said, loud enough for every single soul in that building to hear, effective immediately, you're fired. The salesman slumped, his head dropping into his hands. And you, Darnell said, turning to the manager, you have 1 hour to call every customer you've lied to and start making it right. Tears welled in the eyes of some customers watching, people who knew too well the sting of being treated as less than. Darnell drew a long breath, steadying himself. From now on, he said, voice breaking slightly with emotion, this dealership, my dealership, will be built on honesty, fairness, respect, no exceptions. The crowd, silent a moment ago, erupted into spontaneous applause. And if you believe more stories like this need to be told, stories that expose the truth and fight for fairness, make sure to subscribe to Undercover Files. Check more undercover stories in the description. It wasn't just for the free cars or the discounts they knew were coming. It was for the dignity he brought back into the room. It was for the hope he sparked, simply by standing tall when it would have been easier to walk away. Darnell glanced once more at the glass doors he had walked through just hours earlier. Invisible, judged, unwanted. Not anymore. Today, he wasn't just the man who built Carter Elite Motors. He was the man who reclaimed its soul. Remember, never judge a book by its cover.